I do think that we have a major problem in the Eurozone. It's not just my thinking that there's a problem. I think the whole world knows that the Eurozone is in deep trouble. It turns out that the leadership in the Eurozone countries has been muddling along, trying to contain and actually to address the current crisis that has been ongoing for some time now. This Thursday and Friday, it turns out the European leaders, the leaders of the European Union countries, are going to be meeting to address the Eurozone issue. And indeed, it sometimes is now said that we shouldn't be talking about the Eurozone, we should talk about the danger zone. The 17 Eurozone countries are muddling along, trying to contain the problems. And some of the countries that are members that are in the worst financial condition. We now, as a result of recent developments, have 5 countries that have requested bailouts, the most recent being Spain and Cyprus, just in the last day or so. So it turns out we have 5 of 17 countries requesting bailouts. The obvious question is, what are the choices that have to be made by the countries that are going to be meeting on Thursday and Friday to actually address the crisis? It seems to me there are 2 choices, and there may be others, but I think 2 main choices that have to be made. One is, of course, simply let Greece exit the Eurozone, and perhaps other countries may be requested or required to exit the Eurozone area. The problem with that, of course, is if Greece were to exit the Eurozone, it would not only adversely affect Greece, but it could lead to investors to decide that that's just the beginning of the dominoes falling. First Greece, then which country? Spain, Cyprus, Ireland. Will other countries also find it necessary to exit the Eurozone? If that were to happen, Greece would exit, it could spread to other countries simply by virtue of the fact that investors would take destructive sort of actions by trying to pull out of those countries. The other alternative that I think is perhaps more appealing to some of the European countries is simply to not allow the peripheral countries, the weaker countries experiencing severe difficulties, to exit the Eurozone, but to move beyond a currency union in which 17 countries now share a common currency, and move in the direction of adopting a fiscal union in which all 17 countries would basically try to assist those countries that get into trouble by, for example, issuing or allowing each of the countries to issue euro bonds in which all 17 countries would be collectively responsible for making the interest payments and the principal payments on those bonds. Of course, that, it's argued, would also require perhaps a political union, which would is what Germany favors, meaning that the countries, if indeed they're going to be able to issue euro bonds, that would be the collective responsibility of all the Eurozone countries, then the countries would have to give up some of their sovereignty. What does that mean? Countries like, for example, Spain or Cyprus or Greece or Ireland would have to basically agree to let a central government authority, say in Brussels, sort of be able to take actions requiring that countries deal with their deficit and debt problems. And if they don't, they could force the countries to do so, even level penalties on the countries. So a fiscal union could help solve the problem, coupled with a political union. The exact steps to be taken would have to be worked out among the countries. I think that's going to be discussed this Thursday and Friday. The other factor there is there also would need to be a banking union. And what I mean by that, a situation in which a central authority would become responsible for supervising banks in the different countries, and also have the authority to actually wind up or deal with deeply troubled large cross-border banks in the Eurozone area. And also there would have to be some sort of agreement among the countries with a central authority to have some sort of guarantee to protect depositors on these large cross-country banks. So we're really talking here about, I think, what's going to happen on Thursday, a broader discussion, a fairly dramatic changes being discussed to move beyond simply a currency union, a common currency, but move to a fiscal union, of course, over time, perhaps move then to a banking union and even a political union. What you have now is politics, of course, entering the process because you have Germany saying that there has to be a central authority requiring and indeed being able to make countries deal with their fiscal situations when they start deteriorating. Also, of course, you have France being somewhat concerned that Germany doesn't suddenly start dictating what happens in the Eurozone area. So you have this political element that is taking place too. A good question, obviously, to ask today, is Greece going to remain in the euro or is it going to exit? Everything depends on the actions taken by the leadership in the European Union and the Eurozone countries. If Germany and France can agree and other countries agree with them to take decisive action, it may be the case that indeed Greece will stay in the Eurozone area. Still continue to be a member. I think everything's in the hands of the government officials in the Eurozone and European Union countries. They have to decide what to do. And obviously, what I would want to emphasize, there's politics involved in this. It's not simply a financial and economic issue to deal with. Politics is in play with some people in some countries, Germany, for example, or maybe France, saying, look, why should we bail out these other countries or banks in other countries? If they were, in some sense, perhaps too spendthrift with the funds that are available to them, didn't use their resources properly, why should we come to their rescue? I might add that happened here in the United States in the 1980s. We had a very severe financial crisis in the savings and loan industry, an industry that was supporting housing here in our country. It turns out Texas accounted for about half of all the losses that had to be borne to essentially clean up the savings and loan mess. There were some members of Congress who introduced legislation saying Texas should be levied a high tax, basically, to help cover the cost of cleaning up the savings and loan mess. Ultimately, Congress, I think wisely, said, no, we aren't going to do that to Texas. So here, I think in the Eurozone country, to extend the analogy, the issue really comes down, who's willing to bear the risk in the Eurozone area and who's willing to basically step up and pay for the cost of cleaning up the mess that currently exists. Is it going to be a shared responsibility, or is it going to be that some countries refuse to share going forward in dealing with the losses of these types of situations, were they to happen again, and just dump everything into the lap of a country that encounters difficulties? So I think that's a fundamental issue. Who's going to basically cover any losses? Is it going to be a cooperative effort, not unlike here in the United States, states working together with the federal government when problems occur with a common currency, or is it going to be individual responsibility without the cooperation to keep the Eurozone intact with all its current members?